Welcome to the course. The lessons are designed to help you explore your desire to write a book, no matter what the genre. The tools you'll get through the following lessons will help you write a literary novel, a memoir, a high fantasy quest, or a murder mystery. We'll start with what I think is the most important aspect of your writing career, your process. There is advice available everywhere that will help you to plot or develop characters and follow a classic structure. I'll cover those topics too, but I believe if you try to jump in and follow specific advice before you know your process, you may find yourself frustrated because it makes you change who you are as a writer. The key to getting the most out of the advice is to understand your own process. When you have that, you can work out how best to use the tips and techniques with your writing style. I wrote my first novel in what's called a pantser style. You sit down and start writing the story by the seat of your pants. What I learned much later on was that I'm more of a plotter than a pantser. I like a roadmap so I don't have to worry about running out of story. I know a lot of writers who shudder at the thought of developing a plot. I also know many more who are a bit of both. The point is, there's no right way to get that first draft down on paper, or even a right way to do edits, and we'll talk about the revision in Lesson 6. Let's take a break for an exercise. The supplementary material contains a quiz that looks like this. Please pause the video while you complete the quiz and the scoring. Okay, now you should have something that looks like this. As you can see, I'm more of a plotter than a pantser, which means I've developed some tools for you to use. The plotters will likely use them throughout the process, and the pantsers may find the tools useful in edit and revision mode. Before we go into the differences between pantser and plotter, I think it's important to know neither style is faster than the other. I believe you are either a fast writer or a slow writer. We'll explore some tips on writing speed when we get to the lesson about writing the first draft. Now let's move on to the strengths and challenges of each style. There's no right way to get a novel on the page for everyone. The only right way is the one that works for you. The only common factor in all styles is that you must write. So let's talk a bit about how the people on the pantser side of the scale work. If you are a pantser or lean that way, you do a lot of thinking before writing. You may think about the direction you want the story to take, and you might have a good idea who your characters are, or you might not. At the extreme end of the scale, the pantser will just sit down and write. They may not even know which character is the hero or which is the antagonist. The pantser loves to explore the story possibilities. A pantser will often follow the characters down some dead-end storylines to see if there's something exciting that will change the game. The plotter, on the other hand, likes to know what's going to happen in every scene. They'll create outlines. On the extreme end, these outlines are novellas in word count. And the plotter will have a solid handle on who each character is and their backstory, their likes and dislikes, their goals and motivations. All the possible twists and turns of the plot will be carefully laid out before the plotter starts to write. As you saw earlier, I'm just to the plotter side of the scale, which means I'll put an outline together to test whether my plot is rich enough to carry a full novel. I always do character profiles, and I know who the protagonist and antagonist are before I start. I know that just like any other type of plan, when the first words are on the page, I'll find out something new and interesting that I might want to follow. In my Madeline Journeys series, I had a hunky blonde knight who was going to be a walk-on character. He kept intruding into every scene. I realized that he was critical to the story and to the series, so as a good little plotter will, I stopped fighting the character and I replotted forward to get the story to incorporate this new twist. Let's look at the benefits of plotter behavior. We tend to spend less time thinking about where the story needs to go when we get down to the first draft, and that's because we've plotted out the storyline and we can just start writing. We don't need to keep all the facets of our story in our head because we've got them written down. Revision is often much easier for the plotter. They have fewer blind alleys to cut, and their story tends to follow a fairly straight course the first time around. Of course, there are challenges of plotter behavior. Sometimes the plotter is so tied up in the plot that they miss opportunities in the first draft. When they get to the revision stage, those opportunities may have disappeared. So what are the benefits of pantser behavior? Pantsers explore the story as they write. and this means they can find the most interesting parts of the story as they go. When a writer does that, it's easier to not write the boring parts, and they give free rein to the characters and the story to lead them through. And the challenges of the pantser? Sometimes the pantser will lose track of the story because of the things they don't know, and sometimes they'll even run out of story. And sometimes they will just have to recreate characters as roles become clearer to them. Revision can be daunting to a pantser. They may have written 100,000 words, and when they pare down the blind alleys and character changes, they have a 60,000-word story. For some of my friends who are pantsers, revision is difficult because they know what the story is about, and the excitement of discovery is gone. As you do more writing, you'll find your style changes. Remember, I thought I was a pantser. As you go through the process of your first book, make notes about what felt right and what kept you fretting rather than writing. If you like the excitement of discovering your story as you write, but worry you won't ever get to the end of the novel, try marking the turning points in your plot and then writing towards them. If you find that works, maybe try plotting a bit more. If you found yourself trying to outline every detail but you got bored, try just writing some scenes, and no one said you have to write from scene 1 to the end. If it works for you, jump around. If knowing what the story was about felt like you were only writing the boring parts, try full-on pantsing. You might surprise yourself. As you write more, you'll gain confidence, and that will help you reveal the true writing style lurking inside you. I have to confess, every once in a while I test my ability to pants. The discovery period is where the writer will explore the world they're creating and the characters they need to populate that world. Both plotters and pantsers go through the discovery period. Pantsers may do it in their head or create collages of images that inspire them, or they may do the whole discovery in the first draft. Plotters will have spreadsheets and research folders and will have explored the characters and plot points, and it will all be documented to refer to throughout the story. And what happens in the discovery process? No matter your style or when you do it, discovery results in the same things. Your characters are fully developed, and you know what they look like and how they will react under stress. Your story arc is identified. That's what happens and how people change throughout the tale. Your world is described. Whether you're setting your story in New York City or in a tunnel community on a planet in another galaxy, your world needs to feel right. Now we've talked about the different approaches, it's time to get into the details of story writing. We'll talk about structure in the next lesson, and then lesson 3 talks about characters. If you want to test your assumptions about whether you're a plotter or a pantser, try an optional exercise. Sit down and write a 500-word opening scene to a story about 2 people, Jane and Peter. They have competing goals, and that's all you know. When you're done, you'll have a better idea about how comfortable you are just writing by the seat of your pants. Now, let's move on to lesson 2, structure.